Well, welcome everyone to Nova Night. My name is Christina Eagle. I am currently the PEP coordinator, and I am also have the pleasure of being the transition lead in Arlington Public Schools. We're so glad to have you tonight. This is one of my favorite events that we have as we begin to plan for our students' futures. And I'm going to pass it over to Anna Lily.
Yes, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Your time is valuable to us, so we're going to honor every minute of it, okay? But before we begin, I want to emphasize that on behalf of our colleagues at NOVA and APS, tonight you're going to receive a lot of information, but we're here to support you. So please feel free to contact us. We will be sharing our contact information. You can email us, and we'll be replying and checking our emails. A couple of housekeeping items. Just to let you know, tonight we will be recording this meeting, so please be mindful of any personal information that you decide to share. In order to minimize the background noise, you can keep your microphones muted. If you wish, also your video, if you wish, you can turn it off. We will have opportunities to ask questions via the chat, so please use that feature. I think there will be a couple of times during the presentation that we will stop and ask questions. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our colleagues at NOVA and review. Actually, I'll review. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you. I'll introduce you to our APS team. This is the team that puts the night together for you. We have been working tirelessly to get everything coordinated and get you a wealth of information of all the resources for our students, both while they're at APS and as they are transitioning into post-secondary option. It could be NOVA or elsewhere. And then we have our NOVA team that you'll be hearing from there more directly as they present the information to you this evening. Next slide. And today we have Dr. Hagre from NOVA, who will give us a few words, and then followed by Mr. Tyrone Bird, our Director of Secondary Education in APS. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Hagre first.
Thank you, Anna Lily, and good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight, along with members of the NOVA team. We are just so delighted to be a part of this annual event. An opportunity for students, for parents to learn more about how NOVA and Arlington Public Schools work together on your behalf. It's our commitment to provide the very best educational and training opportunities that we can, as well as to support our students in the accomplishment of their goals. And one of those opportunities is the expansion of dual enrollment. So I'm sure you'll hear more about that as well as other opportunities later on tonight. I want to thank the APS team. Anna Lily, thank you for the invitation to be here. I want to also thank your superintendent, Superintendent Duran, with whom I've had the pleasure of working, as well as the outstanding leadership team and faculty and staff at APS. We just enjoy working with all of you to try to make sure that we're doing our absolute best to meet the needs of our students and families in Arlington. I want to also send a shout out to our NOVA team. Thank you for being here tonight as well. You'll hear more from them in just a moment. Tonight you will hear from some of our outstanding staff about educational opportunities and support that we provide. And just know that we have a very dedicated faculty and staff who really want to teach, to guide, to assist our students to be the very best that they can be. And we want to assist you beyond tonight. So you'll hear a little bit more about how you might be able to do that. Our campus serves just under 15,000 students at our Alexandria location, serving students in Arlington, Alexandria, and Mount Vernon, as a matter of fact, the Mount Vernon community of Fairfax. And so we work with a very diverse group of students with varying backgrounds, needs, and interests. And so it's an exciting environment in which to learn and to grow. And I have to say this, I love my job because I have the pleasure of working with some of the most amazing faculty and staff at NOVA, people who care about students, want students to be successful. And you should know that when students give their feedback about what they think about NOVA, our ranking as it relates to having high quality caring faculty and staff is really, really high. We're very, very proud of that. Proud of our small classrooms that allow our faculty to have more contact with our students and get to really know our students. You know, our goal is to provide the very best equitable access to education and opportunities, student success and excellence, so that we can help our students to be successful and to be competitive, because we don't not only want them to finish their college education, but we want them to find meaningful employment or to transition onto a four-year institution if that's their choice. And so that means that we take any students who come to us and we work with them to help them to get to where they want to be on their chosen career path. The good news is that there's a tremendous amount of support available through NOVA, whether it's advising or financial aid or scholarships or emergency assistance, disability services, a whole lot of services that are available. And there's someone to guide students from the very beginning to the end. So you'll hear more about those opportunities in just a moment, but I want to leave you with this one thing, which I think for me sums it up. And it's a tagline that NOVA uses, and that is that Northern Virginia Community College can take you anywhere you want to go, including places you have never been. And so that is our goal and our hope. And so just please let us know how we can be of help as you pursue your educational and career goals. So thank you again for allowing us to be here tonight, and I will turn it over to Tyrone.
Thank you, Dr. Hagray. Happy Black History Month, everybody. Thank you so much for giving us some time this evening to be with us. APS is committed to our relationship with NOVA. We find it to be an invaluable partnership that we celebrate every opportunity we get. We have put our money where our mouth is, and we've expanded the Office of Secondary Education to include Ms. Caballero, who is my partner in crime now. We are now a team of 3, and it is growing, and it is because this work is so important that we needed to dedicate a competent, intelligent, hardworking professional like her to support our schools as they work toward encouraging and enrolling more and more students into our dual enrollment program. The dual enrollment program is probably our flagship program, but we're also proud of the Pathway to the Baccalaureate program. So our connection with NOVA is from 9th grade to 12th grade right now, but we are starting to reach down into the middle schools and into the elementary schools and letting folks know that we celebrate multiple pathways to graduation and to life after graduation. And that begins when you walk into the doors of Arlington Public Schools. Those of you who have had children in schools all the way from pre-K to high school know that Arlington has a well-earned and well-established reputation as one of the best in the nation. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because we have amazing professionals, and I'm so proud of the team from APS that we have here this evening who steward our children through school and through dual enrollment opportunities, and our partnership with our colleagues Amy Neerman and Katie Imany over at NOVA. I'm sorry if I'm missing folks, but you all work so hard and so well together. I see these meetings on my calendar and I get excited because I know we're going to talk about the good things about school, about how we can capture kids' energy and passions and direct them into a way that's going to celebrate their life, not just through high school, but beyond high school, whether they go to a 4-year college, 2-year college, or immediately into the workforce. We are proud of the graduates that we produce. And again, thank you all so very much for committing some time tonight. You're going to hear some wonderful news from some amazing people this evening. Please be mindful of that as you help your children through the course request form process, as they visit with the program of studies. Look for these dual enrollment classes in that document so that you can help your child, guide your child toward those that speak most to their interests and abilities. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much again for being here, and thank you for this opportunity to say hi.
Thank you, Ty. And with that, we'll get started on our agenda, and I'll leave it for sports and student life at NOVA.
I guess I'll go. I'm the athletic director. My name is Steve Maroka. Been at NOVA for going on 8 years. Appreciate this opportunity to come on and talk a little bit about our programming. So athletics is one part of student life. We have a student life representative here as well. But at NOVA, so a lot of people aren't familiar that we have a full comprehensive athletic and recreation program. We represent all 6 campuses. We currently are offering, as far as a varsity level program, we're offering 10 different activities. And we have them listed if you can see the screen there. In addition to those, we have a rugby program, women's rugby. And then we have a cheer team, a co-ed cheer team that we just started last year. So most of these teams are National Junior College Athletic Association, the NJCAA, that's our governing body. If they're not affiliated with that program, they have their own conference or league affiliation, like our ice hockey team that's in the ACHA, which is mostly all four-year schools. Just some notes on, so we represent engagement on all of our campuses. So any student that goes to any of the campuses can join the varsity team. The location of the practice, we try to keep it centralized. So if it's Annandale or Manassas or whatever the team, the facilities, we'll house it there. But it's open to all students. We offer intramural sports at all the campuses as much as we can based on facilities. Fitness centers at 2 of the campuses, Alexandria and Annandale, and those are staffed with fitness and strength and conditioning coaches that will do like assessments and train and run programming. We also have a virtual program that we started during COVID. It's called Rec on Canvas. Our Canvas website, which is houses all of our academic and all our campus activity. We started up a virtual program, which we have great success. Over almost 2,000 people involved with that right now, just in this last one semester. And that's like fitness classes, information classes, different training programs we run on there through our fitness staff. Some of the things that people aren't aware of, a lot of our athletes that come to Nova for their first year or two, they play on our teams, and then they get recruited and they get scholarship offers to four-year schools. This is something that we're really trying to build on and get that out there. We offer academic support to our athletes, mentoring. We do community service with our teams, strength and conditioning program, athletic training. So it's a great first step for an athlete. I can speak for myself. I went to a four-year school, then I went to a junior college, and then from there I ended up going to a Division I school, played baseball. It was this great opportunity for me. It just changed my life. Was able to get the academic footing that I needed. Got my associate's degree, and then moved on to a four-year school where I got my four-year degree. We have a full staff of coaches. We have full-time staff as far as athletic administrators, and then our coaches are mostly all part-time. We have full-time trainers that we contract out at all of our events. So it's a building program. We've really only had them full NJCAA team since 2013. So we're really still in the building phase, but it's time we're getting the word out. We're building our facilities. We're trying to grow it. And yet as far as our esports program, that's one of our newer programs. It's our gaming teams. We just finished up fall season, and we actually won a national championship in the game Valorant. Some of you are familiar with this esports, gaming programs. It's sport related. So we have like 5 different games that our teams play. So we have 5 different teams within our program, within our team. We have like 35 athletes playing esports right now. So that was a big deal for us to win that national championship in the NJCAA. And most of our other tournaments are against four-year schools. We hold our own. With our diversity and our wealth of talent we have at Nova of our students, we really are very strong in electronic gaming, as we are in most of our other sports too. We get a lot of highly competitive athletes, goal driven. So yeah, just reach out. Our Nova Athletics website is on there, and novaathletics.com. You can find our staff directory. Please email me with any questions, any information you need. And we'll just get back to you, point you in the right direction for tryouts and anything you need for that. And I know for Student Life, Elizabeth is here to speak on behalf of that. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Steve. There is one question in the chat for you. Is there a dance team at Nova?
Yeah, that would be a question for my daughter too, as a senior at Lake Braddock, and that's where she's looking for colleges to go for dance. We don't have that, but that's on deck. That is something that I'm seriously considering, because I have a competitive dancer. She's applying to schools based on dance. Not necessarily to major in dance, but to be on a competitive dance program. So our cheer team is competitive. We brought it in. They were going to competitive competitions right when COVID hit, so they didn't get to do any last year. And it was amazing. So we just advertised it, put it out there, got a great coach, and we had 60 students try out for the team. And they weren't just like regular, they weren't pom-pom cheerleaders. They were like really serious cheerleaders. So that's a great question. Dance is on deck. Baseball is our next sport on deck as well. So we're hopefully with facilities, moving, post-COVID, we could get the dance team going, and then hopefully baseball in a year and a half or two.
Awesome. And then there was a question about, is there a marching band and are there student manager opportunities?
Yeah, great questions. We do not have a marching band. We have tried to create a pep band. It hasn't taken off yet. If you ever been to our gym, it's really small. It's an echo chamber. So if we get a pep band in there, it'll really be a serious atmosphere for basketball. And managerial opportunities, absolutely. Any student staffing, interns, we are always searching and hiring for students to be involved with that. And you would contact me, and I would be the person that gets you connected and interview and hire and be connected with the coach in the program. Absolutely. Great questions.
There's a couple more questions about marching band, tennis, and field hockey.
Yeah, all sports we hear from people. A lot of I get a lot of emails about emerging sports and sports we do not have, and the issue we have is you can't have everything. So right now we have to go within budget, and then Title IX. But those are all sports that we are looking at. I mean, we do have some tennis courts, not in great shape. They're at the Woodbridge campus. And, at some point, if we can get those facilities, that tennis would be something that we would look at as well. Field hockey, we have not had as much interest, but it's something that we would consider like starting it as like a club activity. So when things happen like that, if there's club activity, there has to be significant interest and students sign up for it. And then we have to look at, viability and sustaining a roster. That's been one of the problems we've had with like our lacrosse program, is just sustaining the roster in that we're competing against four-year schools for the talented, athletes that play.
All right. And then other two questions are track and field. Is that a part of your program, and specifically esports? Which ones do you have?
So yeah, track and field. We just, the only event we have right now, as far as it, related to that, is our women's cross country team. We do not offer track and field. It's something in our region that some of the junior colleges do. I don't see us starting that anytime soon, but it's something if we ever had access to the facilities like that. But I know Montgomery College, which is close, and some of our other competitors have that. So, they're within, striking distance if you're interested. Esports, it's a changing thing. When we started the program, we were playing League of Legends and then Overwatch. Those were the only two games. Now it's changing, and we added some other games. And then this spring we're doing it at a gaming club level. We're doing some Fortnite, some Call of Duty. We initially were like, no esports games that were violent, whatever, but now things are changing and they're adding some of this, but not in the national competition. They won't be doing Call of Duty or anything like that. And we're also trying to create more of a recreational. I'm learning all this. I'm no expert. I don't play video games, but there's esports gamers are serious about their particular game. And then there's recreational video game players. And all of our campuses have student lounges where they're playing video games. And that would be more like Madden, football, FIFA, soccer, NBA, 2K, you name it. But you have to be, for parents out there in their esports, if they're interested in doing this, you have to get specific on the game you're going to play. Like I have a nephew that's really serious about, video games, but he doesn't play any of the games that are played at the college level. There's just some different games. So you have to sort of specialize. And these are team efforts. They're teams. So like our Valorant team, which won a national championship, there's 6 players, and they each have their own job within the game. But you can go on our website. We have it all listed, our esports program, our schedule, and all the different games. Like Rocket League is one of our games we're playing now. We have a very good squad this year in Rocket League. And this is co-ed. Cheerleading's co-ed, ice hockey's co-ed, esports co-ed. So appreciate those questions.
Thank you. And the last one is, where will we be able to find conditioning, and do you have a gym for when we are in person?
Yeah, so the fitness centers, the actual gym, like weight rooms, currently there's only 2 of the campuses have like outstanding facilities. Alexandria campus, which is essentially in Arlington, it's very close to Arlington. My office used to be in Alexandria, and then they moved it to Annandale a couple years ago. They have a brand new building there and a brand new state-of-the-art weight room. Annandale's weight room is a little smaller, but that's where our basketball gym is. So Annandale has a small basketball gym for just shoot-arounds, and then a nice fitness center and dance room. In Annandale, we have a full basketball gym. That's where our varsity plays basketball and volleyball. Some of the other campuses, it's in the works. I mean, they're talking about it. I mean, I can't make any promises that they're going to have a good fitness center, but our goal is to have synthetic turf fields at all the campuses. We've got some projects, in the works. Hopefully that gets going. COVID put a stop to the Annandale campus, where we're having a beautiful synthetic state-of-the-art multi-purpose field. And, there's space in Alexandria, there's space at Loudon, there's space at Manassas. Manassas has a Bermuda field that we put in a few years ago. So we're building, we're up and coming. We're getting out there in the high schools, all the counties, and really trying to get the word out. Let's go to Nova. Let's get our game up. Let's compete, get engaged, and then have the opportunities to go from there. So it's it's exciting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you have more questions, we can pass along all of the contact information is in the presentation. So now we're going to hear from Student Life from Elizabeth.
Hi everyone, my name's Elizabeth Karibai and I'm the Student Life Office Manager at the Annandale campus and the temporary point of contact for Student Life at the Alexandria campus right now. So essentially what we do is take care of all the fun and external activities outside of the classroom. So it'll be anything from, free food on the quad, like at the Annandale campus, to college-wide events such as our diversity conference, which is an institute this year that we're holding on the 19th, as well as external professional development and leadership development activities like conference attendance out of state. For example, we went to New Orleans right before COVID hit that February. We attended the National Student Leadership Conference on LGBTQI+ Pride. So it was a really great conference and we got to go to New Orleans for a couple of days. And that's kind of what we take care of there. We also take care of clubs and organizations. So that would involve, some of the honor societies such as PTK and student government. As well as, fun clubs, like we do have an esports club, and those are our recreational students who, didn't want to specialize in that one specific game. We take care of lounge areas as well. So just like what Steve said, is students go out there, they bring their systems and play. We offer board games. We have Nova Day, which is a fair essentially on each campus. And we just give away anything and everything. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if anyone has any questions, I'll drop my email in the chat. But that's kind of a summary of what Student Life is.
Awesome, thank you. Steve, there's one more question, if you don't mind, that is, what are some ways to find the requirements for teams to start a team, I guess?
Yeah, because I was looking in there, so find the requirements for.
Or maybe for the requirements for teams.
So yeah, if anybody, I mean, on our website, we have interested student, you click on a link and it gives you all the eligibility requirements, physicals, all the kind of stuff you're used to with your high school teams, where you have to go down the checklist. You got to do your concussion protocol. You got to do this, you got to do that. So that's all on the website. Or you just email me if it's an academic question. And I'm always willing to help anybody too, is if it's any eligibility questions for NCAA, Division 1, 2, or 3, NAIA. I'm familiar with, I've coached and worked at, all the various levels. So yeah, so we can get that information for eligibility, coming out of high school. For junior college, it's a lot more lenient than NCAA. You don't have to, there's not as many standards coming right out of high school. You're pretty much eligible right from the start. Now, once you're in there, some of the standards are actually harder. Like each semester, you have to pass 12 hours with a 2.0, where at NCAA, it's not that. So yeah, so just email me. I'm going to put it in the chat too. I'll just put my email and mention the novaathletics.com. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, up next, we are going to change gears a little bit and talk about financial aid with Jimmy.
Hey everyone, my name is Jimmy. I'm at the Alexandria campus with financial aid. So we help people and families apply for financial aid. Any family that wants help paying for college can fill out a FAFSA application. It's the free application to apply. You start filling this application out your senior year in high school, and then you fill out a new application every year in college to see what you can be eligible for the upcoming year. So if you're a senior right now, graduating high school, you would fill out the 2021-2022 FAFSA application for next fall. That uses your 2019 taxes to see what you could be eligible for. The application itself is pretty straightforward. However, there are some tricky parts, and we do like to make sure that families do the application correct the first time, just to make sure they get accurate results, to know exactly what they could be eligible for. So anybody that's looking for help filling out the application, I've got my email right there on the screen. Definitely send me an email. We can set up a time to walk families through the application via Zoom or over the phone, just to make sure you get everything done. Or if you have any additional questions after you fill out the FAFSA application and just want to understand maybe what you're eligible for or what the next steps are. On the next slide, I wanted to just go over some of the different types of financial aid, because financial aid is it's an umbrella term for a couple different types of funding. So when you fill out a FAFSA application, you're applying for potentially everything you see on the screen here. So grants are money that you do not have to pay back. They can come from the government, the state. So Virginia State has money for in-state students, and then there's college-specific money. So Nova has specific grants for Nova students as well. Nova does have a priority deadline of March 1st. So any student that's able to get their FAFSA application completed by March 1st, and they turn in any additional documentation that we're asking for, they get dibs on that state and college money. So the federal grant money will always be there, but state and college money runs out pretty quickly. So if you know that you're coming to Nova next fall, or even thinking about it, you definitely want to make sure you get your 2021-2022 FAFSA application in as soon as possible, and then just contact Nova just to see if there's any follow-up information that we need from you in order to confirm what you're eligible for and get you a financial aid offer letter. So try to do that early. Loans, of course, you do have to pay back. So when you fill out the FAFSA application, you could be offered a student loan as well. There's subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. A subsidized loan does not accrue any interest while you're in school. The unsubsidized loan does start accruing interest right away. There's also a work study program. So students that are interested in working for Nova, either on or potentially off campus, there's a question on the FAFSA that just asks if you're interested in it. If you are, you get matched up with a part-time job at Nova you could apply for. And work study jobs start at $11 to $12 an hour right now at Nova. And then there's also scholarships. So in order to be eligible for the FAFSA application, students have to be a citizen or an eligible non-citizen. An eligible non-citizen is permanent resident status, if you have approved asylum, refugee, parolee status, or if you have a T visa, you're eligible for federal financial aid. Unfortunately, DACA students, undocumented students, most other visas not eligible for federal financial aid, but there's definitely still scholarships available that you can apply for. Nova has 3 scholarship cycles, one in the fall, the spring, and the summer. And our spring scholarships are up on the website you see on the screen here, the nbcc.academicworks.com. They're actually available for the next 2 days until February 11th is the last day. So any senior that's coming to Nova next fall can go online and apply for those Nova scholarships right now. So definitely do that. If you fill out a FAFSA application, you see you're not eligible for any grants, maybe only a loan, or if you're not eligible for FAFSA due to citizenship information, or if you just want more free money, definitely look into those scholarships. One other thing, I did mention eligibility for the FAFSA application. Another piece to keep in mind is that in order to receive financial aid, you do have to have a high school diploma or GED. So unfortunately, dual enrollment students, and I believe dual enrollment is up next, not eligible for federal financial aid. So once you graduate high school, then off to college, that's when you can actually start using that funding. I put my email on the last screen, but we've actually got a virtual lobby right now. So I put the link to that, and it's right on our website as well. Any student that wants any assistance or follow-up, You click on that and it instantly connects you to a financial aid advisor via Zoom, and they can either walk you through the application, help answer any questions. But our virtual lobby is open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. So you can always try to check that out, or just send me an email as well. And then lastly, before I hand it over to dual enrollment, there's one other thing I did want to mention. I said that if a student or a family is applying for financial aid for the upcoming fall semester, it looks at your 2019 taxes to see what you're eligible for. However, of course, because of COVID and everything that's been going on, your financial situation right now or in 2020 might not necessarily be accurately reflected by your 2019 taxes. So initially, when you apply for financial aid, you do have to use your 2019 tax return. But if your financial situation is different now, definitely reach out to the financial aid office at Nova. We can help use more current information to see if we can get you a better financial aid offer letter. So.
Thank you. And there, we do have one question. If they submitted their FAFSA application, received a confirmation, how long does it take to usually hear back about what they're eligible for?
So typically, if you're coming to Nova, once you fill out an application, you'll get a pretty good idea what you're eligible for as far as grants when they submit it. Nova will usually get your application 3 to 4 business days later. Sometimes after we get the application, we do need to verify some of the information on your FAFSA. So what happens is we would update a student's My Nova account as soon as they get access to that with any documentation or anything else that we need. So maybe we need a copy of the tax return or a US passport. And then once we have everything we need, then we'll put your financial aid offer letter on your account. If we don't need anything, typically you can get your offer letter in about 2 weeks. So, if you applied a while ago and you haven't heard anything back, definitely send me an email or hop onto our virtual lobby there, and we can see what the next steps are or what you might be eligible for.
And then there's another question about if someone doesn't apply for fall 2021, can they apply for financial aid the next year?
Yeah, absolutely. So every October 1st, a new application opens up for FAFSA. And I mentioned before that it's better to apply early. So every October 1st, you want to make sure you're filling out the application for the upcoming year. So if you're not going to school in the fall or spring, next October, you can fill one out for the following fall or spring.
Awesome. And I just want to also note, I know I've worked with Jimmy with a bunch of my students in the past and how helpful the financial office is at Nova. So there's lots of questions that come with filling out FAFSA. So if you have them, I encourage you to reach out. They're super responsive and very helpful. All right.
One thing I'll say is definitely be proactive. If you have any questions, always ask, always reach out to us and ask, just to make sure you're not missing out on any free money. So,
yeah. All right, well, thank you. One question before we change topics, and that is, can a student submit a FAFSA without parents' information?
Good question. We get that a lot. Typically, if a student is under the age of 24, they do have to use their parents' information on the FAFSA. There's a couple questions when you're going through FAFSA that it'll ask. And if you answer yes to any of those questions, it basically waives parent information. Those questions are, it has to be something as like a student was in a legal guardianship or was in military or veteran of the military or has like a homeless situation. So there are some ways to omit parent information and students can appeal, but it's got to be more of an extenuating circumstance where they don't really have contact with parents. If it's just something where maybe student files their own taxes or has their own job, unfortunately, they still do have to use parent information on their application.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, we're going to talk about dual enrollment with Katie and Deidre.
Hi everyone, I am Katie Imany. I am the dual enrollment coordinator at Nova. I work with Arlington Public Schools. Deirdre is joining us. She'll pop in the chat to answer any questions in there. I put our contact information there. It's just a general email. I can grab those emails and get back to you if you have any questions that you want to email us. So if you can go to the next slide, sorry. All right, so some general advantages to dual enrollment and what dual enrollment is dual enrollment gives students the opportunity to earn college credit in high school. Some courses may meet high school graduation requirements where others may be for college credit only. So just kind of depending on the path that the student is going. Dual enrollment does give students the opportunity to gain exposure to college coursework. So these are college level courses. It's not college prep, it is college coursework that students are starting that NOVA transcript. Give students the opportunity to become familiar with higher ed practices, get comfortable registering for classes, seeing college classes on your account, and your course syllabus and that kind of thing. Develop hands-on experience. So we have a lot of classes that are those core general ed classes, but then we also have some career and technical classes, auto tech, entrepreneurship courses that students may be looking to use on their resume, get jobs right out of high school, and take those classes in the high school setting. Gain that personal and academic interest, demonstrate motivation to future employers and educational institutions. So put that on resume, put that on college applications as you are applying to schools or where you are going next. So who is eligible for dual enrollment? So students do need to provide us with college readiness in English and math. That can be demonstrated in a couple different ways. We can use PSAT, SAT, ACT scores. This year it is a little challenging with students not taking those classes or taking those tests, so we can use a GPA to place students. We have some more information coming out for fall classes as students are looking at those classes of what will work for placement. So I can send that out. We can talk more about that if you have questions, but we can use GPA for placement. Typically, students are at the junior senior level in high school taking courses, but we do allow some exceptional underclass students in some classes to request admission to those specific classes. Those requests go to the Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs. She looks at the transcripts, GPAs, any test scores that students may have, and considers that placement for students. So we do need that college readiness for math and English regardless of the course. So even if it isn't a math or English course, we do need both college level readiness for English and math. Currently, there is no charge for students taking dual enrollment courses that are offered in the high school. So if the course is available to students at their high school or at the Arlington Career Center, these courses are taught by a APS instructor who has also been credentialed as a NOVA adjunct, and these courses are tuition free to students. Students are also able to come to a NOVA campus or take NOVA online classes. However, they would pay current tuition and fees for those courses, in-state tuition rates for those students taking those classes. That's a place that students can take both the dual enrollment classes that may work for high school graduation requirements, just worked out with APS, or take classes that they qualify for that are just general interests, college credit only, something that they may want to do to enhance their application to four-year schools or get ready to come to NOVA the next year. If students are coming to NOVA to take those classes, they are paying those tuition and fees, but they're also paying textbooks, parking passes, anything that may come of that. And as Jimmy mentioned, dual enrollment courses are not eligible for financial aid since you do need that high school diploma or GED. And then if you are graduating this year, you are a senior and you are coming to NOVA next year, you keep your NOVA account. That NOVA account stays with you forever. So all of your classes just continue on that same NOVA account. You'll work with a first year advisor, an academic advisor, faculty advisor, get program placed, and those classes will just transition right into that degree. You do not need to request a transcript to be sent. Everything's right there. If you are going to a 4-year and you have taken dual enrollment classes either this year or in previous years, you're going to want to make sure you submit an official NOVA transcript to that school. Wait until your final grades are posted, so that may not be until June if your class goes till the end of the high school academic year. Make sure those grades are posted and then submit an official NOVA transcript to be sent right to that school. Your high school transcript may say that the class was dual enrollment, but the 4-year will not give you credit for that NOVA class until they see the NOVA transcript. So you're going to want to make sure that you get that official transcript over to where you are going next. Transfer is always a decision of that end school, so you want to talk to them early. I always talk to students, tell them as you're going on campus tours, mention that you're taking dual enrollment classes, say what you're taking, say I'm taking, NOVA English 111, 112. How is that going to look on the degree plan as I'm coming in? Mention that to your advisor as you're going in. You want to make sure that you talk to them up front so that you're not taking a class that first year that you could get credit for. So talk to them about your AP, IB, and your NOVA classes that you're taking. All right, that's it for me. So if there are any questions, I can address them, or Deirdre's getting them in the chat as well.
Yes, thank you, Katie. And I would just like to remind everybody that at this time, our students are going to be selecting their courses. So if you have any questions regarding dual enrollment, you can direct them to their school counselor or email Katie directly, but we'll be on the lookout for that. And we are proposing to do a more in-depth look at dual enrollment after students select their course selections.
And we are doing our online portal again this year. So if you took classes last year and requested your class through the online portal, you're going to request your class the same way. You will log back in, choose your class through that portal.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we are going to transition to the pathway to baccalaureate with Amanda.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amanda Wilder, and I am the Pathway to the Baccalaureate Transition Counselor for Arlington, the Arlington Schools. And so I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about what the Pathway program is, what the requirements are to apply, and then there will be time to answer any questions when I'm done. So the Pathway to the Baccalaureate program is a college access program that provides additional support for selected underrepresented students from participating high schools in the Northern Virginia area. We are a partnership between APS, NOVA, and then also George Mason University. But students, while many of our students do go on to George Mason, they are not required to. We have a lot of students who go on to the 4-year school of their choice. Pathway is just one of the ways in which students can transition from high school into NOVA. And when I'm finished, I believe you're going to hear from the first year advising office, which would then help other students who either may not want the extra support that Pathway offers or may not just be a good fit for the program. But I tell students that they might consider Pathway if one, they want to start at NOVA. They want to do the 2 years at NOVA and then transfer to that 4-year school to complete that full 4-year baccalaureate degree. We really are looking for those students who are both wanting to and are able to complete that bachelor's degree. Especially if your student feels like they are unsure of what the college process looks like. If they feel overwhelmed from the application point all the way through the actual transition point, Pathway is a great option for them to get that added support starting now in their senior year. I also, any students who have had other barriers to their academic success, and not just academic barriers, but life barriers. Maybe they're the first in their family to go to college. They don't feel like they have someone at home who understands and can help guide them through the process. They're working full-time and going to school, maybe taking care of siblings. There are a lot of things that students kind of encounter that can impact their ultimate success. And so we want to help them navigate that process. Next slide. So for students who choose to participate and apply to Pathway to the Baccalaureate, they will start getting that support starting in their senior year of high school. During the fall of the senior year, we help students, one, with the NOVA application first, which is the first step in applying to NOVA or to Pathway. So I, in a normal year, am in their high school at least one day a week, where we can get that face-to-face time, and I can actually, get, hands-on help throughout that process. Our application is usually due the first part of November, and we have actually just finished selecting and have begun working with our cohort of seniors this year. So we had our first workshop on Monday, which is part of that extra support that they're going to get while they're in high school. We usually meet monthly as a group to go over various college-related topics, get them ready for that registration process in the spring. We will help them understand the FAFSA, and we'll also help walk them through it, just like the financial aid office will do. For many of their quick questions, we're able to kind of navigate and help them. Occasionally, I do send them on to Jimmy because it's a little bit more than I understand, but a lot of times we can help them navigate that as well. We will help them determine that placement into college level classes and actually do the academic advising piece and registration while they are still in high school. The registration for fall classes usually opens in April. And so our goal is to have students registered and enrolled in classes before they leave their high school. We really want to cut down on, especially in a normal year, having to send them to campus and go back and forth a lot, and act really as that one-stop place where they can get all of their questions answered. Okay, next slide. These are the workshop topics that we cover in the high schools. So like I said, we had our first one just this week, where we just kind of welcomed students, went over responsibilities, talked a little bit about email etiquette and what the expectations are. At the end of the month, we will cover financial planning and FAFSA completion, including scholarships, grants, and other ways, how to pay for classes out of pocket, all the different avenues. We'll then talk about college placement in a little bit more detail. We'll review majors and career readiness, talking about STEM versus non-STEM majors and what those expectations are. And then finally going over what that transition to NOVA looks like, understanding how to search for and register for classes, using our information system, using Canvas to access their classes, so that they do feel like they know what they're doing when they show up on their first day. Next slide. Once students get to NOVA, that support does not stop. We continue to support our students throughout their entire time while they're at Pathway. And that includes having specific scholarships and grants that Pathway students are eligible to receive. It also includes a summer orientation program that is specific to our students as well. All students at NOVA are required to take a college success skills class in their first semester. We ask that students, as part of Pathway, take it in a specific cohort so that we can really make sure that they are getting the extra information about transfer resources, understanding the what is required of them as a Pathway student. We will put a hold on all of our students' accounts every semester so that they must meet with a counselor before registering for classes. And while some students feel like this is a lot and they have to go get that hold removed, really it's just to make sure they're touching base with us. We want to make sure that they're taking the right classes for their major and also for their transfer school. Our Pathway counselors on campus are very knowledgeable that, Virginia Tech may want this communications class while UVA may want this one. And we're really trying to make sure that that seamless transfer not only happens between high school and NOVA, but between NOVA and that four-year school as well. We also encourage our students to complete what we call a mid-semester progress report, where unlike in high school, college professors don't send out interim grades, but we want our students not to be surprised at the end of the semester when it's too late to do something about possibly a failing or a grade that they're not happy with. So we encourage all of our students to have those conversations with their professors midway through the semester so that they know what the expectation is. If they need to be going to the tutoring center, if they need to be going and seeking out extra help, they can make arrangements to make that happen before the end of the semester. We also have community and service and leadership opportunities for our students. We want them to be involved in campus and get that overall college experience. And then finally, we will help them with that transfer process, including understanding their guaranteed admissions agreements, offering transfer workshops, sending out reminders that, transfer deadlines are coming up. Next slide. For students who are interested in participating in Pathway, we are an application process. In addition to completing the NOVA application, they will also have to complete the Pathway to the Baccalaureate application. It is an online application now. Like I said earlier, it's usually due in the first part of November, and does require that NOVA application to be completed prior to doing the Pathway application. We also ask students to submit an essay where they tell us a little bit about themselves, including any barriers that they have encountered in their academic success and why they think the extra support of Pathway would be beneficial to them. If a student is under 18, the parent will have to sign off on it, and the counselor is also going to complete a recommendation for the student as well. Finally, we would like them to submit their current, senior transcripts so that we can look at the classes that they've taken, the rigor of the classes that they're taken, to make sure that, they are preparing themselves for that college level work. Okay. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. So feel free to email me or drop them in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to also highlight that for our dual enrolled students, there are some on-campus things that you can participate in with some of the clubs and tutoring and library services. So I did want to highlight that. And also for some students who are seniors, they can earn their general studies or associate's degree while they're still in high school. So I just wanted to highlight that as before we transition into first year advising with the J.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. This is Jayanti Esports. I go by Jay. I am one of the first year advisors at the Alexandria campus. So you just learned about the Pathway program. So most of you got accepted and some of you did not. If you did not, no worries. First year advising got you covered. So what does that mean is basically you are going to get the same service as the Pathway program. There's no difference. Only very small differences. When you are in a Pathway program, the Pathway counselors literally work with you from the first day till you graduate from NOVA. When you are in a first year advising program, the first year advisors will help you for the first 2 semesters and then introduce your faculty advisors based on your discipline. Let's say you are a STEM field, like a science, technology, business. So then we introduce your faculty advisors based on that. So let's say you are a soft science, is a liberal arts or social science, then we introduce the faculty advisors based on that. So the bottom line is do not worry whether you are in a Pathway program, whether you are in a first year advising program, you are all part of NOVA. You get the all services that you deserve. Next, please. So who's assigned a first year advisor? Basically, students who are graduated from high school or are recent high school graduates. What does that mean? Is some of the students, they finish the high school and take a break and they come back. Some of them, they graduate from high school, immediately they transition into college. So any of them get their first year advising. And then also students between age 17 to 24 with no prior college experience. So some of the students, what they do, they finish the high school and then they apply to VTech or UVA, go for 1 semester, and then for some reason did not work out. So then they come back. When you come back, you are not part of the first year advising. You will be working with one of the counselors at NOVA. Again, regardless of how you come in, you still get the same services with a different group of people. And then also the new students who never attend college. So like some of the students, how do I say this? let me come back. Let me go to the next slide, please. So if you are part of the first year advising, and if you need to get to first year advisors, even though you are all part of Arlington Public Schools, you get the first year advisors based on your last name. If your last name falls under A to C and S, that would be me, Miss J. And you can see my long last name. A lot of people miss one of the letters and I don't get many emails. Please pay attention to my emails. And if you have any questions, feel free to come to me. And then if your last name goes from M to Q and R, that would be Mr. Smith. Even though Mr. Smith works with M to Q and R, he also works with a lot of people who are interested in STEM majors. So we work like a team. If then anything we needed, Mr. Smith will jump in and help you. And also Mr. Tyson works with a D to L and T to Z. So what are the benefits being in the first year advising program? It is very important that we need to meet with the students and discuss about their placement. So now you guys know that everything is virtually done. So even though the placement test is not mandatory, it is very strongly recommended that you need to do a placement test online. And then once the placement test is done, we meet with you and discuss about the English and math. Some other students, if they are doing well in high school, we can use their high school GPA. And some of you, of course, you do SAT or ACT, that's fine too. We can use that as well. And if you are decided to go with the GED, that's useful as well. And then once your placement test is done, the placement, and then next thing is, what is the major? Like as you said that while you are in high school, you are taking dual enrollment classes, so anything, but your major is not in the system. So once you are transitioning into college, your major has to be declared, and that is something, some of you come up with the certain majors and some of you not quite sure exactly what to do, and we are there for you and we will help you out with that. And then once you have your major, then we have to make sure that the major is aligning with your career plan. Some of you know that what you want to do in terms of career, but then you try to choose a different major that may not work out for you. So we'll make sure that we talk to you about from the end path and then see work backwards. So what is your career plan? And then based on the career, what would be the best major for you at NOVA? And then how that will transfer into four-year institution in case if you decided to go to four-year institution. So based on that, we will help you select your classes. That is very important. As Amanda mentioned, that it's not about just NOVA. We make sure that if the VTech or UVA want certain elective classes, we'll make sure that based on your major at NOVA and then based on the transfer school, what are the classes that you can take without wasting your money and time. And then in terms of transfer school options, a lot of people think that if they come to NOVA, George Mason is the only way to go. Yes, we are a great partnership with George Mason. At the same time, there are so many schools in this Virginia area that you can go into. And there are so many scholarships are available. So that's what we are here for. So don't just limit yourself. If you focus on your school, get good grades, and then meet with your advisors, discuss about your plan. This is my plan. This is my career plan. These are the options I have. So based on who you are, we can talk about that. So make sure you utilize the resources at NOVA. And then one-on-one advising session. We make sure that you meet with the first year advisors and get the advice you needed. There are some of you are quite good. You go to NOVA, look at the program of study, look at the transfer schools and what are the requirements. Yes, boom. But some of us need some extra help. So we are here for you. So don't hesitate to ask any questions. Please feel free to reach out to the first year advisors or anybody at NOVA. And then even if we don't know, we will make sure that we connect with the right individuals who can help you through the process. I think that's all for me. And if you have any questions, I will drop my email in the chat. And of course, you can even, all our information is on the website as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we are going to talk about transfer planning with Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Nelson. I'm the Chief Transfer Officer at NOVA. So essentially what that means is that I work directly with our four-year partner institutions in the development and maintenance of our different transfer agreements. And then I also spend a good portion of my time working on our different transfer initiatives. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of transfer planning. And a lot of times when I do presentations at events for prospective NOVA students or for students who are in their first semester at the community college, they ask the question, why do I need to be worried about transfer planning when I still have time left at the community college? I'm not thinking about making that transition to a four-year institution for a couple of years. But the reality is our motto in transfer is this idea of begin with the end in mind. So essentially what that means is that the earlier a student starts thinking about their transfer plans, the smoother that transition from the community college to the four-year institution is going to be. It's really important to remember that every four-year college and university is different. Every four-year institution is going to have their own admission criteria. Every four-year institution is going to have their own unique degree requirements. Therefore, the earlier a student knows what it is they want to study and what four-year institution they would like to attend, the sooner our advisors and our counselors can ensure that the student is pursuing the right degree at NOVA and that they're taking the best possible classes. So the good news is that there are some things that you can actually be doing or you can be encouraging your student to do before they even come to NOVA when it comes to transfer planning. So the first is career exploration. We'll have many students that will come to NOVA and have a pretty clear set of goals and educational objectives. But then we're also going to have students that come to the community college who aren't really that sure about what they want to ultimately do in terms of a career. So one of the things that I really encourage students to do as early as possible is start conducting that research. So begin looking at resources like NOVA's Career Services portion of our website. This is a really great tool because it helps walk students through the career exploration process. And it takes into account that different students are going to be in different places when it comes to career exploration. So this resource can help students identify how their values, skills, and interests relate to different career fields. There's also a lot of good resources that give students a better understanding of what they would do on a day-to-day basis if they went into certain areas. And then there's good information about helping to put the puzzle pieces together and helping students make well-informed decisions for themselves. When it comes to career exploration, this is really key for students because when picking a major at NOVA, we encourage students to work their way backwards. So in other words, the sooner a student has an idea of what kind of job they would like to have or what type of career field they would like to go into, the sooner we can look to see what type of educational credential is going to be necessary for them to perform that job. We then take it a step back and identify the most appropriate degree to pursue at NOVA. So just think of it as working your way backwards, thinking about that career first, what type of education is necessary, and then we'll identify the most appropriate degree of study at NOVA. What's also important to remember with career exploration is that when selecting a major at NOVA, we have different types of degrees that are going to prepare students for different things. So on the screen, we have 3 types of degrees listed, and these are typically referred to as our transferable associate's degrees. Those are our Associate of Art, Associate of Science, and Associate of Fine Art credentials. What makes these degrees transferable is that they help students get their general education requirements out of the way. These are the courses that students are taking their first 2 years at a 4-year institution. So the hope is that if a student pursues one of these degrees, when they transfer, then they'll only be focusing really on their major intensive coursework because their general education classes will be out of the way. NOVA does offer applied degrees as well, and those degrees are most often sought after for students who are looking to enter the workforce after their time at the community college. Next slide, please. Another thing that students can start doing before they even come to NOVA when it comes to transfer planning is identifying what four-year institution they would like to attend. Oftentimes when I ask students where they would like to go and they list a school, one of my follow-up questions is, well, what excites you about attending that four-year institution? And sometimes students really don't know how to answer that question. So it's very important that students, again, do their research. They look into different aspects of that college experience. Earning a bachelor's degree is going to be one of the most time-intensive and expensive endeavors that a student is going to pursue. So it's really important that a student identifies an institution that's going to be a good fit for them. On the screen, these are just a few of the different factors that we encourage students to consider when identifying what four-year institution they might like to attend. So size. Does a student feel comfortable being one in a class of 100? Or do they want to have a smaller student to teacher ratio? Location. Is a student interested in staying in this area to pursue their bachelor's degree? Or are they looking to go elsewhere within the Commonwealth or out of state or internationally? We have students that transfer all over. Does a student want to go to a school that's in a more rural setting or an urban location? Admission criteria. It's important to remember that transfer admission criteria is different than freshman admission criteria. So I always encourage students to look at the transfer requirements and see what type of GPA the schools are wanting students to achieve, what types of classes they should be taking, and what the application process is going to look like. I always encourage students to take a deeper dive and look at their major at the four-year institution. So get a better sense of what types of classes you'll be taking once you transfer, what types of careers this major is going to prepare you for. Are there opportunities for internships or studying abroad? Campus life. This is another really important component of the college exploration process. Of course, academics is of utmost importance, but it's also important for a student to look into the other aspects of the college experience. So what types of extracurricular activities, sporting events, volunteer opportunities are there to get involved in? Of course, cost is very important. What is going to be the cost of attendance at the institutions that the student is considering? Are there scholarship opportunities? Retention and graduation rates. So one of the questions that we really encourage that transfer students ask is, on average, how long does it take a transfer student to earn a bachelor's degree? And then of course, this idea of transfer friendliness. So what we mean by transfer friendliness is, on average, how many transfer students does that institution accept each year? The higher the number, the better the chance of a student getting accepted. Again, these are just a handful of different points of consideration, but it's really important that students start this research as early as possible so that when they have that meeting with their pathway advisor or their first year advisor, they can talk more in depth about their transfer plans. Next slide, please. And then finally, I wanted to share some information regarding some of our transfer resources. We don't want students to navigate the transfer process alone. We're here to support you, and we also have a lot of really helpful resources that you can start looking at now before even coming to NOVA. The key resource that we have available is our NOVA transfer website. And on this website, you're going to have access to all of our different transfer partnerships, information about our transfer agreements. We have information about our different transfer events and tips for navigating the transfer process. We do have a number of different transfer partnerships. These partnerships take a lot of different forms. So we have what are called articulation agreements and transfer pathways, which gives students a better idea of what specific degree to pursue at NOVA and what specific classes to take for a handful of popular programs of study at some of our largest feeder institutions. We also have our guaranteed admission agreements, which are agreements that outline certain requirements that if students meet those requirements, they are then promised acceptance to the four-year institution. And then we also have our Nova Mason Advance program. This is a relatively new partnership that we have with Mason that's looking to take the guesswork out of the transfer experience. And it does that by providing students with not only a clearly articulated transfer pathway that will tell them what they need to take at both Nova and at Mason, but our advanced students also have access to a dedicated success coach who will be with them throughout their entire educational journey, both at the community college and four-year institution. And our advanced students will also have access to Mason resources while they're still at Nova. That last link at the bottom of the slide is going to give students access to our transfer hub. This is our transfer blog that again has really helpful tips and suggestions for students as they go through the transfer process. It also highlights important transfer workshops and events. One of the things that's really important that students understand as early as possible is that while we have a great advising and counseling staff at Nova, it's very important that students make connections directly with the representatives at the four-year institutions. So we provide a lot of different opportunities for our students to get connected to those representatives. I'll be entering my contact information into the chat. If you have any questions regarding the transfer process, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. There were a couple of questions in there, but Deidre is so good at getting the answers in there. There was one question about students who earn an AS in computer science apply to a four-year school as transfer students from first year. Do DE students, I'm sorry, who earn an AS in computer science apply to a four-year school as a transfer student for their first year?
Yeah, so what I'll recommend is for specific questions, I'll provide my contact information and I'm happy to schedule individual appointments to talk a little bit further about where a student wants to transfer, what type of courses a student's taken or degree a student's earned, just because with transfer, it depends is a phrase that's frequently used. And that is just because every school is different. And so I don't want to share any information that's not accurate or pertinent to an individual student situation. So I'm happy to help. I'll provide my contact information and give more specific answers.
Thank you. And then there's one more general question, which is, so transfer to a four-year school is not automatic. You could still apply and not be accepted.
That's right. So we do have guaranteed admission agreements, which are agreements that will outline certain requirements that if a student meets those requirements, they are promised acceptance to the university itself, but not necessarily to a specific major. Most of our students, though, who transfer to four-year institutions do not transfer using a guaranteed admission agreement. Instead, they transfer as a competitive applicant, meaning they're applying just as any other student would. You might get in, you might not get in, but these are students that for one reason or another don't meet the conditions of the guaranteed admission agreement. Even with our guaranteed admission agreement, students are still going to need to follow the application process. So yes, there is a chance that a student applies to a four-year institution and does not get accepted.
All right. Thank you so much. And now we are going to shift gears and talk about disability support services at Nova with Tracy Bell.
Wonderful, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Miss Tracy Bell, and I am the disabilities counselor at the Alexandria campus of Nova, which I suspect many of you, if you decide to attend Nova, will come to once we get back there, that is. So next slide. Today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about Nova's mission. I'm going to introduce you to the Office of Disability Services. We're going to talk about some differences between high school and college. There are a number of differences in policies, procedures, and services that we definitely want parents and students to be aware of. Then we're going to talk about transition for students with disabilities who plan to attend college, and not just Nova, but any college, because the process is really going to be very similar. And then lastly, I will walk you through how to apply for accommodations at Nova. So moving on to our mission. As an institution that receives federal funding, under the law, NOVA must provide accommodations to students who are academically qualified, regardless of whether or not they have a disability. So if you come to NOVA and you're academically qualified, you cannot be denied access to or participation in any services, programs, or activities that are held at the college. And so that would include classes, that would include events put on by Student Life, that would include maybe transfer events that Jennifer may host. You know, if you have a disability and you need accommodations for that, that will be provided for you. Next slide. So in our Office of Disability Support Services, we are a centralized office reporting to our director, Dr. Joan Ehrlich. And there are 6 campuses, an online campus, and several different centers, I suppose they're called, where there are campus-based DSS counselors. So I am located again at the Alexandria campus. At the Annandale campus, we have 2 counselors, and then we have 1 each at Manassas, Loudoun, Woodbridge, and the Medical Education campus. And we all work very closely together because we have this awesome database where we all can put in information about anyone. And so when students take classes across campuses, we can see that information, and any campus-based counselor can help you, or your assigned counselor can help you. But in our office, we also have sign language interpreters for students who may need that. Even if they're just going to the admissions office or financial aid, they can arrange for a sign language interpreter to help them through that process. We also have a captioning support staff. If a student is enrolled in a classroom and they need closed captioning to access that class, then we have that available to them as well. We provide assistive technology to students, and we have a coordinator that works with that. And then we also, if necessary, can provide reader scribes in the classroom or for testing, and we have staff for that as well. Next slide. So, transitioning from high school to college can be a big deal. You see, this looks like the economics class that I had in my first year in college, and it was very large, right? So that's a big change. There's going to be a lot of changes in the way that things happen and the way students need to get things done. Next slide. So the biggest changes related to accommodations are the idea that right now students may be in high school and they are under the IDEA law, and they have IEPs and 504 plans, right? So those are the documents that students get in the high school to help them with getting access to their education. Or helping them to modify certain things about their education. But once you come to college, and again, it's not just NOVA, but it's any four-year institution, new legislation governs the process, and it's more about self-advocacy, right? So students, I would advise you, right now to start getting used to this idea of speaking for yourself, right? And what that means is start participating in, if not leading, your own IEP meetings. So that will be helpful as you move on to the higher education process. You'll already be familiar with how to advocate for yourself. Next slide. So the biggest difference between high school, K through 12, is individual success. But in college, it's about access. And those are 2 very different things. So in high school, you may get some modifications to your general curriculum and the academic standards to meet your needs, right? So you get extra instructional support, sometimes in the form of an extra teacher in the classroom, a specialized instructional staff member. You may not have to meet all the standards that other students may have to meet, right? that is what happens in K through 12. But when you get to college, we are more concerned with you being able to access your education. And just because you have accommodations doesn't necessarily mean there will be success, but it will provide you access. So the accommodations in college may not change the fundamental nature of a course, a program, curriculum. And let me just give you a quick example of that. Let's say that you are in a communications class, okay? And your primary disability is communication, right? And so you sign up for public speaking, where the fundamental nature of that class is to learn how to speak in public. But you sign up for it and you ask for an accommodation to not have to do that. Well, that would change the fundamental nature of a public speaking course. Is there another way that we can accomplish that? The student getting access to the course? Absolutely. We would recommend the student enroll in a different course, communications course perhaps, but even in that public speaking class, the student could record their presentation and play that back to the class. They could present to the professor by themselves, or any number of other things. So that's how we provide the student with access, right? And we just want to eliminate barriers. You know, there are a lot of barriers that students with disabilities face in terms of how courses are designed, how flyers are put out, you know, whatever it may be. And so that's really one of our goals, is to eliminate those barriers. Next slide. So this chart here is really, really important and highlights some of the common differences between high school and college. And there are many more, but these are the ones that we like to focus on. So as you can see in the left column under high school, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to point out a few things. Highly structured. You know, it's my understanding that there's a homeroom, you know, first period and instructional studies period. You may eat lunch at the same time. The bell rings, you go to a different classroom. But when you get to college, there's going to be so much flexibility. You will get to choose when you take your classes. If you're a morning person, take them at 8 o'clock. If you're an evening person, take them at 8 p.m. at night. We have all of that, and you get to choose how many classes you're going to have in a week, what time of day they're going to be. So there's a lot of flexibility, and students, that's a big difference, right? So also in the high school setting, again, the one thing that's really important is that the grades are going to be given to the parents, right? So your mom and dad may have access to pretty much everything because you're a minor, and they are the ones that are sort of handling everything for you, right? But once you get to college, you will need to you will get the grades yourselves, right? We have this learning management system called Canvas, and that's where grades are posted, and that's where the student will have access to them. And parents are not going to be given a copy of that. No one mails anything anymore, right? And so students, if you choose to reveal your grades to your parents, you can. If you choose not to, you can do that too, right? And so what follows from that is, if you get a bad grade, no one's going to call your parent and let them know, oh, we need to have a conference because you got an F on a test. That's not going to happen. And at the college level, instructors really don't have an obligation to speak to parents, right? So students can certainly request that a parent be in a meeting if they want to have a meeting with an instructor. However, the student really should be prepared to lead that conversation and to ask the questions that they have and to facilitate, you know, the conversation so that they can get the answers that they need, right? And one of the other things, you know, in high school, I hear there's this thing called the the 50 floor or something, where students are not allowed to fail, right? And so even though you didn't do a paper, you might get 50 points for the effort of something, right? Well, in college, if you have a paper due, you need to do it and you will get the grade that you earned on that paper, right? So it's about how well did you do the paper. It's not about, oh, you did it, but it didn't follow the guidelines, it didn't have all the information in it. So you really will be evaluated on how well you do things, your performance, and you're going to be evaluated the same way that other students are, because one thing that's really important to understand is students with disabilities must meet all academic requirements of every course, just like any other student. And so there wouldn't be a situation where, for example, in high school, say in an English class, the entire class may have to read 5 books, but maybe the student with a disability only has to read 3. Well, that's not going to happen in college. The student with the disability, the accommodations, will have to read the 5 books and do everything according to the requirements of the course. Next slide, please. So what are some of those basic things that you need to know? The one thing that is very important is that in high school, you have your IEP and you have your 504 plan. That document does not automatically transfer to college. So when you leave, you know, whatever school it is, TC Williams, right? As soon as you step across the threshold of Nova, no one knows that you had accommodations at TC Williams unless you self-identify. So you must go through the process with the Disability Services Office at Nova if you are going to want accommodations in the college setting, okay? Now, as far as the document that you had in high school, whether it's an IEP or a 504 plan, they may or may not be sufficient, because again, we are talking about a different law that governs the process to get accommodations in the college setting. And so the documentation and what we're looking for may not be included in that IEP, that standard IEP, right? If you have, and we'll talk about the documentation guidelines a little bit more, but usually the most recent psychological evaluation and educational evaluation are the documents that have the information that are useful for the college accommodations process, okay? And then another point to remember is that there may be some accommodations that the student received at the high school level, but they may not be appropriate for the college level. And so, you know, the process that we go through is individualized based on the student's need, their documentation, and the conversation with the counselor. And so again, we already talked about the last point, where self-advocacy and independence is going to be very important. While we do meet the student where they are and recognize that some students may need more support than others, we will still direct the conversation to the student and expect the student to be able to speak for themselves, even if they have a parent or some other form of support in the meeting. So keep that in mind. Next slide, please. All right, so as I said, all students must follow a process. You have to establish eligibility at the college level, because again, that document you had in high school is no longer automatic in the college setting. So we do have an online database, and I would ask you to click that link, but please click the link. I'm wondering if it's going to go, that I changed that. And so oh, wonderful. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Disability Services website, which is, you can easily find at nvcc.edu. And if you go to that top right corner in that search box, type the letters DSS, and you will come to some links. And the very first one is usually our homepage. Okay, there we go. So when you get to our homepage, you can see we have some welcome information there. And on the left-hand side, underneath in this section, you can see sort of the information that's included on the website, okay? And then toward the right-hand side, because you are all graduating from high school, you're going to read the information in the second box that says students applying for accommodations for the first time. So there is a short video there that you can watch before you apply, or you can simply hit the DSS application button, which will show you the green button, which will give you the application right there. And it's an application that students, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So it's an application that students will be able to complete for themselves, right? So the most important thing is you must have applied to NOVA before you can do this process, because we do need that 7-digit unique ID number. Okay, so that ID number is what you're going to put in your DSS application, which asks you some standard questions. What is your name? Where do you live? What campus do you plan to go to? What are you affiliated with dual enrollment or pathway or veterans or some other group? And then it asks you, what kinds of accommodations did you receive in high school? So you have your documents, you can check off some boxes there. And then it also asks you, what kinds of accommodations are you looking for at NOVA? So the important part of that is looking for. Once you check those boxes, that is something that will be determined based on the documentation that you submit, based on your individual diagnosis, based on your conversation with the counselor, and based on what you're eligible for, right? And so at the end, when you submit the application, you will have an opportunity to upload your documentation. We always recommend students have the documentation before they go through this process, because it just makes it that much easier and smoother. So what I encourage students to do, almost like right now, before you graduate, please get an electronic copy of your IEP, your 504 plan, your most recent psychological evaluation, your most recent educational evaluation. You should have those documents in your possession, because they are your documents. They describe you, they give you information about how you function academically, and that is the very same information that when you get to the college level, the counselor is going to expect you to be able to talk about, okay? So the other things on this page, once you become a NOVA student, you can renew your accommodations from this page as well. And we also have some other information about some of the services that we offer. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, actually, if we can go back to the previous slide. Yes, to the website. I want to draw your attention to the bottom where it says general information, okay? So right there under the general information heading, there we go. We have some other information. So if you have a hang tag, right? You need accessible parking. There is information about career, you know, some of the stuff that Jennifer just talked about. There's information about dual enrollment, you know, what you've also heard from today. And then there's some other information about other services that we offer at NOVA. Now we can go on to the next slide. So as far as the process, yes. So you complete the application, submit your documentation, it gets reviewed. And the most important thing is that you're going to meet with the campus DSS counselor. It could take anywhere from half hour to an hour, depending on the documentation and the student. It can even take longer. I've had intakes up to 2 hours because that's what was needed for the student, okay? And so at the end of that meeting, the student will get what we call a Memorandum of Accommodation, or an MOA. So the IEP language is is no longer valid, right? It no longer means anything in the college setting. Once you get this MOA, that is going to list your accommodations for college, and that is what the student will provide to professors and the testing center. And this goes back to why self-advocacy is so important, because the student leads the train. This is your educational process. You are the conductor, and we are sitting in the cafe car, right? And the working car and the quiet car, and we're chugging along the track with you, and you're going to provide that document to your professor. And if you have difficulty, you come back and you request somebody to help you, and we can do that. But we're still not going to speak for you, right? You're going to provide, if you have difficulty with something in the classroom, you're going to speak to that instructor and advocate for yourself. But if you have difficulty, come back and we'll help you. So the self-advocacy piece is very important. Next slide. So we've actually already done that part, visited and completed the application, okay? And so we can go to the next slide. Online application, yes. Documentation. So the meeting. Let me give you a little bit more detail on the meeting. So it's important to know that the process is individualized for the student, right? Because no diagnosis impacts two people in the same way. And so when we're in the meeting, we have read the documentation, we have an idea of who the student may be on paper, but I have to tell you, there are times when the student presents in a much different fashion than what's described on the piece of paper, which is why the intake is so important, which is why it's so important for the student to be able to have an interactive conversation throughout the process, but certainly in the intake meeting, to have that interactive conversation with the counselor so we can get to know you. We can give you tips on how to function in the environment that you have now walked into, because again, we're not going to be in the classroom with you. And so we want to help provide you with the information that you need in order to, increase your chances of success in the classroom, because that goes back to things being very different. The way you communicate, the way classrooms are taught, the way that you will interact with your classmates. So all of this is important, and it's all discussed in the intake meeting. Next slide. And this right here is a sample copy of what the Memorandum of Accommodations looks like. If you can blow that up and only focus on the first page, that would be great. So the document, basically, this is the official document for students who have accommodations at NOVA. This is the only document that students have to give to instructors. Please do not give an instructor your IEP, your 504 plan, any of your evaluations. That comes to our office. This is the document you're going to get. So you can see at the top that it specifies a specific term. On this one, it says spring 2020. So that means that it's only valid for the spring semester. So students will need to have one of these documents for each semester they are enrolled in classes at NOVA, and you will go back to that database to make that happen. It also says that it's confidential. That's another one of those really big differences between high school and college, because we are legally and ethically obligated to keep your information private. If you provide this document to your instructor and I receive a phone call, all I am going to talk about are the accommodations listed on this document. I cannot share information with your instructor about what you and I talked about, or about what the documentation that the student gave me talks about, right? And that's very different from high school, where, you know, you have the meeting and everybody's in the room and everybody knows what the disability is, what the accommodations are. So this is what you're working with, right? So it goes to all of your instructors and testing center, and you don't necessarily have to give it to tutoring, but sometimes when I refer students to tutoring, I recommend they do. And so the notices at the top of the document really just talk about some of the things that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation. So we consider this to be a shared responsibility, right? Student, you're leading the charge, but faculty and the Disability Services Office are there with you. So we should all have an interactive discussion together should any situations arise, right? The accommodations are also not retroactive. And what that means is if we're at a second 8-week session, right? And well, if a student is enrolled in a 15-week class and the student gets their MOA after spring break, right? Which is pretty much halfway through that 15-week session. The student cannot then go back to their instructor and say, hey, I have accommodations now. I would like to retake all my tests and resubmit all my quizzes and assignments. That is not allowed, which is why we strongly encourage students to start this process in June or July, once you graduate, so that we can get all the documentation in, you can get on the calendar for an intake, and you can have your MOA on the first day of classes. That is very important. It's also important that you talk to your instructor, because what you may need in math is very different from what you need in English. And so each instructor should really understand exactly what accommodations are important for you in their class. And if at any time there is a question or a concern, students are highly encouraged to contact their DSS counselor immediately. There are often many situations where students wait till the end of the semester and they come back and they say, oh, I never got my extra time. Unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done at that point. So we need to deal with things as soon as they happen. So students are definitely encouraged to contact us and let us know. And then on this sample MOA, you can see a variety of accommodations listed. I'm not going to go over them, but you can also see that they have a mini description beneath them. Okay, and so that helps you, the student, and the instructor get on the same page about what the accommodation is. And if the instructor has any concerns about how that accommodation is to be implemented in their class, they are welcome to contact me. So, and then on the second page, if you actually go down to the end of the second page and scroll up a bit, what you'll see here is that at the end of it, you will know who your DSS counselor is, because their name, their email address, and their phone number will be printed there. And then the next address you will see is the central office email, and then you'll see the date that the document was distributed to you, okay? So remember, this is the key document once you get to the college level, and it's put together based on what you give us from high school, our conversation, and then what you're eligible for under the law. So disability services, moving on to the next slide, is not the only resource that you will have when you come to NOVA. Again, or any other college, because I expect four-year schools still have some of these basic resources. So the counselors are at each campus, like I said, and we have someone that supports our NOVA online. We also have our office, again, serves all of our campuses, and we have assistive technology that helps all students across all campuses. And given we're in the virtual environment, there are other supports that we recommend students take advantage of. All of these resources are free. Okay, all you need is your student ID, which has that 7-digit number on it. So at some point, you should probably memorize that. Okay, at the Alexandria campus, we have the Academic Success Center, and I work very closely with them to refer my students, particularly for academic coaching. This is one of those prize resources that I'm so thankful we have at Alexandria, because we have 4 amazing staff members who work one-on-one with students who may need that extra help. If you have difficulty in time management, organization, even, test taking, whatever else it may be, you can have an academic coach, get assigned to an academic coach who can walk you through those things, who can, check in with you each week and keep you accountable, right? And I think I've referred a lot of students to them, and they've done amazing work with them, and we have seen success. And so it's a prize resource. But we also have the Writing Center, we have subject matter tutoring, and we have SEAS workshops. That SEAS stands for Strategies for Educational and Academic Success. Again, they're free workshops. They're all virtual now, but they cover a host of topics. They run the gamut. They're all about academic skills that students need, how to study correctly, how to read for comprehension, how to write essays, how to do proper research for your essay. And the list goes on. And they're just amazing too. And there's a Canvas site where students can enroll in and get access to all of that. And we, of course, have our testing center, and then we have other partner programs. NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We have the Workforce Recruitment Program, where students can actually get referred for internships in the federal government. And we have actually had a number of students who were accepted and got jobs in the federal government as a result of having an internship there. So that could turn into a potential opportunity, okay? And the next slide is questions. So the disability services at nvcc.edu is the primary email that you should send all inquiries to. As I said before, I am the only counselor at the Alexandria campus, and the volume of email that I get is amazing. And so if you have a general question about something related to the process, it's best to send it to this email, and it will get distributed out to whatever campus you think you're going to go to. But also, you've seen our website, and you can also go there to look for information. And I put this last resource on because it is something when we were in person, we would actually give copies to the high schools to give to students. This is a document put together by the Department of Education, and it is a complete transition guide for students with disabilities and youth who are interested in going on to either post-secondary education or vocational opportunities. So it runs the gamut from, what to do when you're in high school to how you transition into college or work opportunities, depending on what your needs are. So that is my section, the very last section. And now I guess I will entertain questions.
We have a couple of questions in the chat. So for a student who is a new college student, what would be the best way for them to know what accommodations might be available, and or what accommodations they should ask the counselor to include in their MOA?
So the accommodations, going back to that, are individualized, and we don't like to play what if games, right? And so there are a number of accommodations that are offered, and you won't know what you're eligible for until you go through the process, right? Because again, it's individualized. Whatever documentation you have is going to give us some idea of how you're functioning academically as a result of your disability. And that's the information that we use to determine what you're eligible for. So that's why the documentation is important. That's why the intake is important, because then, you can certainly ask for an accommodation that we haven't made you eligible for, but the important thing is to be able to make the connection between your diagnosis and that accommodation. So it has to relate to your diagnosis, and it has to satisfy some level of access based on how you function. But it's an individualized process, and so I can't say what you might or might not get, unfortunately.
The next question is, does accommodations also apply to advanced programs?
As in the advanced programs that Jennifer talked about?
It doesn't specify, but
Okay.
I would say like pathways or yes. Or,
Okay, absolutely. So whether you are a pathway student or a first year student, you know, and you're with first year advising, it doesn't matter. When you come to NOVA, if you need accommodations, we highly encourage you to start the process, okay? And so again, it's just it's a simple process of making sure you've already applied to the college, and then submitting your application and your documentation through the Disability Services website, and we will work with you. I've worked with a lot of pathway students, and sometimes, you know, I work in tandem with the pathway counselor to make sure that they know what the students' needs are and the kinds of supports that they need, because they may be doing their academic advisement, but I have key information about how they function in the classroom. So while the pathway counselor may say, you know, oh, take these 4 classes, I may say, well, let's talk about that with the pathway counselor, because I just read a 25-page psychological report, and I'm thinking maybe you want to start with 2 classes. Now, at the end of the day, the student can do what is best for them, but that's how we operate. We make the recommendation based on what we know from a disability standpoint, and the student can follow it or they can take the advice of their pathway counselor. But we work with all students who come through the door and qualify for accommodations.
Tracy, could I jump in a little bit on one of the accommodation questions?
Sure.
With a little bit of a perspective. My name is Jess Baker. I'm one of the assistant principals at the Career Center. And I've helped a number of students kind of try to navigate this process of understanding the 2 different realms of accommodations. And one of the things that might be helpful for the question about what accommodations might be available is when you submit your application on the NOVA DSS website, there actually are some common ones that you can list that have been included on your IEP. And so those kind of bring that up. And also one of the other important things that I'm going to mention is as students move through high school, part of the IEP team in a way is almost to work ourselves out of a job. Is that our goal is to help students become more and more successful with fewer accommodations and really focusing on what they need.
Yes.
And so over time, really making sure that the high school students participate in their meetings and can really be able to speak to what they need to be successful and why.
Yes.
And that's really an important thing. And so like at the Career Center, we do a lot of work to make sure we engage our students in their IEP meetings. But that could just be a note to families that are listening. Really engage your students in that process, allow them to participate and have their voices heard. And then for students to really make sure that you understand those parts of your IEP that talk about what your strengths are, what your needs are, and then how those are supported through something like an accommodation. So if you require extended time for a test, to make sure that that's something that you're using and that you understand why that's beneficial for you. So when you get into talking with Tracy or anybody in the DSS office, you can speak to that well.
That's a very wonderful addition. Yes. And once again, sort of added to that, students and parents, and really it's the students' responsibility. Make sure you have those electronic copies. You know, in this pandemic, I understand the schools are closed and we're getting straight IEPs with no supporting documentation. And unfortunately, the IEP doesn't have all the information that we need. So I often send the student back to their former teacher and say, ask for the most recent psychological and educational evaluation. So those are the key documents, unless, you know, you have some other condition where you have a medical documentation for your condition. So just as a reminder, right, to the APS staff, please, furnish those documents to the students before they leave you. And so they're more ready when they get to us.
There's also a question about, can parents participate in the intake meeting with the counselor for first-year students?
Absolutely. I have met with students, virtually as well as in person when we were on campus, and they had parents in the meeting. That's fine, but once again, the student is the person that we're going to have the conversation with, right? And so it just goes back to being able to talk about, like she said, what your strengths and weaknesses are. The way I handle that is, I have the conversation with the student and I say, mom or dad, at the end, if you want to add something, that's great. We'll have a chance for that. But it's really the time for the counselor to get to know the student and to determine what their needs are.
Great. There's another question about, does NOVA offer a certificate program for special education students without a high school degree who have completed the life skills program within APS?
I'm not sure that's a question for me. A certificate program as in a credential, like it's not an associate degree or it's a certificate?
It doesn't specify in the question, but I think it's like a program that is specific to individuals or students who have participated in the life skills program.
So
I'm sorry.
Let me just add one thing, Tyrone, and then so the idea in students coming to college is that they're a part of the general population of students. So we do not have specific classes for students with disabilities. That would kind of defeat the point of them being a part of, the entire student body and having access to the same education that everybody else does. And so that's one thing I'll say, and then I'll let Tyrone speak.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the family is asking a question about students who graduated with something other than a standard or an advanced studies diploma. And if that is the case, would those students who had an applied studies diploma or some other type of studies or some other type of acknowledgement of completion of high school, would they be allowed to enroll at NOVA?
So, can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
I was just going to say, it's my understanding, though, too, that NOVA has what we call the ability to benefit. So students would need to place into, at the very minimum, those developmental math and English courses. For students who can't place into those, there's not, from an ethical standpoint, we, don't want them to continue to take classes and pay for classes that they can't benefit from. I'll also add, though, just for further, general knowledge, that students who graduate with that applied studies diploma, the FAFSA does not recognize that as a high school completion diploma, and so would not be eligible for financial aid. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
I would also say that as a transition coordinator who works with students, we've had students who have, no matter what their diploma, who have gone on to post-secondary education to gain skills and trainings and even certificates to advance their skills in the workplace and to further their careers. So as I think one of the things that we do within Arlington Public Schools as they mature throughout their academic experience, we look at their skills and interests and try to do good transition planning as they move forward in planning for their future. So, and then there's a couple of other questions about how recent should psych and educational testing be? How recent?
So I'm going to go back to what Jennifer said. it depends. And what it depends on is the diagnosis and how well the documentation describes the student's functional limitations. So, let me take an example. So, a student has a diagnosis of a math disability, specific learning disability in math, right? Well, that certainly doesn't go away, right? Nor does any disability go away. And so that documentation, you know, whether it was done in 5th grade or 12th grade, they're still going to have a math disability. You know, they may have learned to compensate for some things, but there are so many other things involved in not being able to do math, and those measures are not likely to change. And so in a situation like that, what I would be looking for is certainly that document that originally diagnosed the student with the disability. But in that case, I actually would want to see an IEP or a 504 plan to see what accommodations they used in high school, what was helpful to them. But the things related to math are not going to change, right? So it really does depend, which is why I say your most recent psychological and educational evaluation. I don't know what the guidelines are in terms of students being tested in that high school year, but you know, if it's from 10th or 11th grade and you come to Nova, you know, a couple of years later, it's probably still okay because again, your diagnosis hasn't changed. But I say all that, but I also let students know that at some point, you know, they may want to have a better understanding of themselves, right? So if you had your testing done in 6th grade and you come to Nova and you're struggling and you can't figure out why, you know, this is happening and you're not getting good grades, you know, I say to students, you may want to seek updated testing, not for us, but for you, so you can get a better understanding of how you function. Because when you go on to a 4-year school, they may not take that IEP from 6th grade, right? Some do, some don't, okay? We don't require students to spend money to get stuff. We will try to work with what you have, but it really does need to give us an idea of how you're currently functioning. That was the end of the statement.
I hesitated on taking my mic, my mute button off, so I apologize.
That's okay.
There also, if there's disability specific questions, I think that they're best handled in a conversation or a direct conversation because every situation and student needs are different and unique. So Tracy, would you agree?
I would definitely agree. And again, you know, we went through the process, and given the volume of applications that we receive, unfortunately, it's not feasible for me to have, you know, those individual conversations, which is why we do this. But, you know, if it's a quick question, it can go to the disability services at nvcc.ed email. Otherwise, just start the process because you're going to get an answer from us no matter what you submit. You'll get an answer if you don't submit within 14 business days, but you'll also get an answer within 14 business days of what you do submit. So if we come back and say, gee, this just doesn't have the information that I need, do you have X, Y, and Z? Then you know which way to go. So start with what you have, all right? Don't go out and spend a bunch of money on a $3,000, you know, evaluation because you want to get X accommodation at Nova. Don't do that. Start with what you have.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I also wanted to just note that if you're also have questions, Arlington Public Schools contacts would be your transition coordinators. Also, your school counselors and your college and career counselors are all there to support as you transition plan.
Yes, thank you. And with that, we are at time. It's amazing time. I felt like time flew by. So thank you everyone for your time and expertise this evening. We did get a lot of information. Just to let you know, the recording of this meeting will be posted at the dual enrollment website from APS. And I'll put that in the link. And also we will be having another NOVA night in Spanish on February 24th. And if you know of any families or if you want to hear it again in Spanish, feel free to register with the Parent Resource Center. So at this time, I want to thank everybody. Thank you, families, for hanging in there with us, and everybody else, all of our presenters from NOVA and APS. Great job, team. Anything else? I don't want to miss anything.
Well, actually, Anna Lily, I want to mention, and I'll be talking to you about this soon, that not only will we have the one in Spanish, but we're also going to have our vision conference, our annual vision conference, which will be in April. So I encourage all students and parents, because there will be an opportunity for parents to talk to the counselor and get their questions answered as well. We'll have an evening for that. And that basically is the Disability Services Transition Conference for students with special education in high school, how to get to NOVA.
Perfect.
So you should be getting some information from Anna Lily about that soon.
We'll be sending that out.
Thanks, everybody. It's great to see you all. Good job, Anna
Have a
Lily.
good night.
You
Thank
too.
you, team.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.